Before 2005, the food situation was very bad. Whether we can attribute that to global warming or whatever, rains are becoming less and less, and the Gutu, which is the southern part of Zimbabwe, and its marginal rainfall area. And therefore, really, as the rains get less and less, then there's less and less food available to the people. And in the 2005, and maybe a few years before, and after that, it got worse and worse. It was desperate. And what made it worse is that, the usual NGOs who used to supply food aid and so on, they were not there. And even if you had money, there was nowhere to buy food from. That's how bad it was. The farmers really depended on maize crop. It was the only crop they were growing. And it was the only crop which seeds were available. That you could go in the seed outlet shops and you get seeds. Because the seed houses would heavily promote it. And even when it comes to aid, even the government would give seed packs to the villagers. And when people in town would bring seeds for their parents and so on, and it's maize seed. That's the only thing that has been available. That is the only thing that people have been growing and accustomed to, despite the fact that, the yield were getting poorer and poorer because of less and less rain. When I went to see my mother, I had 5 bags of maize. When I took it to her, but discovered that it was not just her who had run out of food. Everybody had. And her situation was even better than other people in the same village. So we ended up sharing that food that I had brought for her. After we had discovered that there was desperate shortage of food in my village and also the surrounding villages, and when we bought them food, that was the first thing that we did. Bought them 5 tons of maize, which we distributed for free in my village and in my wife's village. But then the question was, is it sustainable? How long can we do it? Is there a better way of doing it? And so on. And we started thinking about what can be done in the future. And it also happened at the same time that I was invited to do an MSc program whose approach was very much results oriented, and I was required to do research. That was a very good opportunity for me to start thinking and to start researching about it. And the approach is you do research with, not on the people. And we used a method called cooperative inquiry and participative action research, where we do it together with the people. And by engaging people, we said, okay, what is the problem? What can be done about the problem? And so on. Everybody participating, everybody coming up with ideas, and so on. And it brought us back to the old times when people were growing finger millet. And it brought us to the stage where everybody agreed that for us to overcome that problem, we had to go back to our culture. We had to go back to growing finger millet as the only crop which can solve the problem, because it's drought resistant, it's the crop given to us by nature. It's like a grass which can also die when there's no moisture, but the advantage is when rain comes back, it comes back to life. And we discovered that anybody who grows finger millet, it may be a poor crop, but at least you get something. Unlike maize, when it dies for good. And really it was through the engagement, the discussions with the people. It is the people who came up with those answers, not me. Out of the concern that, buying food for them is not sustainable. We had to find a way that was sustainable, where people can grow their own food on their own. The first thing was to find out from the people why there was shortage of food and find a way to engage them, to get them to discuss, even on their own. Say, why are we having shortage of food? Why is there severe hunger and so on? Why is it now different from what it was when we were all growing up and so on? And through that discussion and that engagement, people started to think of the solutions to the problem. And they came up with that solution that, the answer is to grow finger millet. They say, okay, if the answer is to grow finger millet, what are we going to do? Where do we get the seeds? And who is going to start growing finger millet? And of course, the discussion started with my own people, my own village. That's right. And when other villagers got to know about what we were doing, they also got interested, because there is also the dependency in terms of our culture, the relationship, the extended relationships and so on. People in my village would have relatives in other villages and so on. And that's how other villages also got involved. It was also labor intensive to prepare food or the meals from finger millet, because the process is longer compared to maize. Maize, you just take it, go to the grinding mill, you've got your meal, and you make your food. With finger millet, the process is a bit long. You have to dehusk it, and after dehusking, you roast it, and then you take it to the mill, right? And then you make your food from that. And then, because we lost the skills in making good food, tasty food from finger millet, and the younger ladies, didn't have the skills, and therefore they would make bad, tasty meals, and there was that resistance, and there was also the stigma that finger millet is an old traditional food, while as maize was modern and so on. That's where the resistance came from. When they see that other families now have food, more food than they have, because they've been growing finger millet, which the other families in their villages were not growing. So they were learning from example and from what the other people have done. So they also wanted to do that and so on. It also, we had what we call field days, which really was aimed at educating those who have not yet been convinced of growing finger millet. And we would choose the best farmer, we'll have our field day there, they would see how well the crop is done. And we were lucky that we were able to offer prizes for the good farmers from number 1 to number 10, initially, so that more and more people get interested and get involved in growing it. And there was that competition. The older farmers who have been growing finger millet, that's where we got the seeds. We also got the know-how on how to grow the finger millet. And they showed us by demonstrating the correct way of planting finger millet. It's a small seed that if it's not correctly done, it doesn't germinate. That's right. So they had to demonstrate to the others. And we had 2 very important occasions in educating others. The pre-planting demonstration field days, where the older farmers and the agricultural officers would demonstrate the correct way of doing it. And also the correct way of mechanizing the growing of finger millet, which is one of those which caused resistance and so on. Then the second field day is when pre-harvesting, when the best farmers would show their good crop compared to those who have not done very well. And then the best farmers would then explain how they have achieved those good results by growing the best crop and so on. So really it is by seeing, by doing, by demonstrating, which then convince people that it can be done. If it's done correctly, you get good results. It started replicating itself. That's, other village getting to know about it and wanting to do it, and it kept on spreading to all corners of Gutu. We have 44 wards in Gutu, and now every one of the 44 wards are growing finger millet. And then, because the district agricultural officer had seen those good results and is now actively encouraging all the extension officers to encourage their farmers to grow finger millet, and also to join the field days and the competitions. Everyone is getting his farmers to compete, and also they will go and source and ask for prizes, or the farmers would put together a fund where they can then buy prizes for the best farmers and so on. So really, we estimate that in all the 44 wards, there should be about 40,000 families or households, and on average, each family would have about 5, in some cases 6 people. That's the average, which really is based on the national statistics and the national census. That's right. That's what we have. And then if you times that by that, we have been good to over 200,000 people. That's right. So that's how we estimate the numbers of those families. It's a known fact now, if anybody wants finger millet surplus, they will go to Gutu. I think we would have estimated that we would have about 20,000 tons amongst the families and so on, which really is part of their food reserves. The best ones would have up to 5 years of food reserves for each family. That if it doesn't rain for 5 years, that family will still have food. The average ones would have between 1 to 3 years of food reserves. That's right. That is the accumulation of the grain that they have in their storage. The shelf life of finger millet depends on how it is kept and where it is kept, ranges from 5, 15 up to 30 years. And when I say it is the crop given to us by nature, it's highly nutritional. It is everything the human body needs, from your vitamins, your proteins, your calcium, your fiber, we carried out a lab test to compare it with other grains. It is the best of all the grains. That's right. So it really is what we need compared to other grains. By observation, the health of the people have improved greatly compared to what it was before 2005. People would look thin, miserable. School kids would look thin, miserable, as compared to now. Everyone looks healthy. Everyone is happy. You see smiling faces everywhere. And when people have enough food and have food security, and they know that they can rely on themselves, and they don't have to rely on food supply from donors, from the government, from other. It's there in their storage. It's theirs. Their self-confidence does increase. That's right. Food is one of those things which can be manipulated by whoever has got it, and which does affect the ego of people. Self-confidence is affected. But in our case, people are happy. They have lots of self-confidence, and they are healthy. What people have said now, they are saying, now that we have got enough food, we have surplus grain, can we then use this grain to generate money for us? And I'm pleased that it's happening, because the awareness of the nutritional value of finger millet in urban areas is increasing, and therefore the market for the finger millet. And we are saying finger millet is the source of our food security, is also the source of our economic self-sufficiency. Finger millet can also be used as local currency in exchange If you don't have a goat, if you want a goat, you give them a bag of maize or 2 bags of finger millet and so on. And you get your goat or a chicken. And even if you want a heifer or a cow, in exchange for 5 or 10 bags, depending on the age of the heifer. So it's used as local currency in exchange for what you don't have. That's the advantage of finger millet. When you want to talk to your spirits, the ancestral spirits, you can't talk to them without finger millet. You must hold your finger millet and they start talking to them and so on. It's really very much part of our life and part of our culture. Ownership of the change process by the people is the key. When people are convinced that it is to their benefit to engage into whatever would change their lives, and it is through the correct engagement with the people, not imposing ideas on them. The correct engagement is, let's look at our problems. What causes our problems? And how can we solve these problems? The solutions coming from the people, and it is their solutions, and therefore they buy into it, they are committed to doing it. And again, the beauty of when it's done by them, they've found solutions to their own problems, not from outside. They've found their own solutions to their own problems. They are proud of that. Their self-confidence has increased and so on. It's not imposed. And that self-confidence, the self-reliant, is self-propelling, and they want to do more. And they are saying, now that we have overcome this shortage of food, can we then overcome the poverty aspect and so on? And we can do it on our own without anybody. If there's anyone who is going to make a difference to their lives and livelihood, it is them who can do that, no one else. So really, that has been the beauty of working with those people and doing what the people have done, and a source of self-pride. The future is really bright. If at all there is a grain that can make a difference to our country, and maybe which can return it to its former glory as the breadbasket of Southern Africa and so on, it is finger millet. That's my strongest belief, that it is the only thing that can do that, because there's very little investment that is required. You don't use lots of fertilizers. In fact, in our case, people use organic manure, which comes from their cattle, from the compost and so on and so on. And it's very good for the soil. It doesn't damage the soil like the fertilizers does and so on. It is a green project, which is very friendly to the environment. We don't have physical boundaries to districts. So the neighboring districts around Gutu have picked the project, they have picked the program, they are also replicating what has happened in Gutu. And because of the extended families and so on, people from other districts come to attend our field days, and they learn from that, and they also go and do it. And far away districts like Mwenezi, Swishavane, which is some 300-400 kilometers from Gutu to the south of Gutu, have learned about it. They've come to attend our field days. Then further to the north, Chivu area and so on, they've also learned about that, and they've invited the extension officers from Gutu to come and demonstrate to them how to grow finger millet. To the east, in Inyanga district, which is usually a high rainfall area, but because of the nutritional value of finger millet, they are also growing finger millet. They've asked the agricultural officers to go and demonstrate to them how to grow finger millet. So it's a project which is being replicated throughout Zimbabwe. And if you give it 2-3 years, I'm sure most of Zimbabwe will be growing finger millet. The health people have discovered that finger millet has very good health effects, and that it can be used to treat up to 7 diseases, like your diabetes, your blood pressure, and so on, right? And I think it's because of the nutrition And it has very good health effects compared to your maize, compared to your rice and other things. And they are more and more encouraging people in urban areas to eat healthy foods. And one of those health foods is finger millet. Therefore, it's increasingly becoming popular in urban areas. And hence the market for finger millet is going to increase.